Okay, so now we have our fresh flour. I'm going to show you how to make very simple, basic whole wheat bread from freshly milled flour. Again, you can do a lot of things with this. I like to put flaxseed in mine, sesame seeds. I love just millet thrown into my dough. So there's a lot of things you can do. If you like chunky bread, if you want sunflower seeds, you want all kinds of spices, cheese, you can do that. But this is just the most basic, simple recipe, and then you can play around from there. But what we do is we used whole wheat berries, milled them in our mill in under 5 minutes, 20 cups of flour, and we're going to use this kitchen machine is the Bosch. And if you don't know much about it, you might want to look it up. It's B-O-S-C-H. It's German engineered, phenomenal machine designed to last you at least 17 years, incredible warranties, and it's really designed to work with whole grains. A lot of the machines get kind of worn out with the whole grains, but this one has both these hooks, which works in a figure-8 pattern, and this cuts. So it's as though you were working it yourself, turning and cutting your dough. And that way it's going to develop the gluten, it's going to develop the wheat so that when you do let it rise, it's going to be nice and fluffy, okay? So what I did was I filled my mixing blender with hot water, and that goes right here. So when you buy a Bosch kitchen center, you're going to get these dough hooks, but you can also get some other hooks that come with it that will let you whip up eggs into meringue, will let you whip up mashed potatoes, and then of course you'll get these dough hooks for making bread. The bowl is so large that you can quadruple recipes. So for me it works great because I can do a huge batch of dough, which I'm going to do today, and I can do a second batch if I want to and freeze up dough or bread. Okay, so I'll cook it and freeze it, or I'll just freeze the dough and then cook it later. But what happens if I want to make a cake, I can do up to 4 times the size in here, and the same with cookies or anything like that. So it really helps you to maximize your time in the kitchen. And then the blender is what I use for making salsa, hummus, and I also do smoothies in here, either green smoothies or just fruit smoothies in this blender. I actually own 2 blenders for my family, just for the size. And so a lot of times I'll just pop one on and pop the other one on, and then we end up with all we need with the 2 blenders full of smoothie or whatever we're making. You can also make blender pancakes by putting your grain in the blender and grinding, mixing in your ingredients. At the very last, you put in your baking powder. As long as your griddle's hot, you're ready to go with pancakes. That's one of my favorite things to do with the blender. Okay, so the question I get sometimes is to compare this to the Vitamix, and you just almost have to just trust me that the Vitamix is a wonderful machine, but this machine is going to give you so much more ability and so much more you can do with it versus just having a really powerful blender. But if you are an everyday smoothie kind of person and you're doing that for your family, you may want a Vitamix separate on your counter. But for the money, I would definitely recommend you start here because you can do so much for your family. And then later, if you want, you can buy a slicer shredder that's going to fit right here. You can take this bowl off and your slicer shredder is going to go right there. And there's several discs you can use. It's a food processor. And there's another processor that will go right here for you. It's a little bit smaller. So there's several things you can get attachments for the Bosch in the years to come as you begin to add to your kitchen center. But today, I'm just going to go back to this very hot water. I like to check the temperature of my water. You can use purified water. If you do that, you're going to need to heat it on your stove. This was heated on the stove, and I use my thermometer just to make sure that I'm at least at 105 degrees. You can go up to 115. If you go any lower than that, you're going to have yeast that won't activate, and if you go higher, you're going to end up killing your yeast. So I like to just be sure. I use my thermometer every single time. My mom will just test it, and she just has a feel for what that water should feel like. So I admire that ability that she has, but for me, just using the actual thermometer helps. So I'm going to pour this in my machine, and you're going to see that when I make this, that was 6 cups of water. The recipe is on yourhealthsource.org on our website. But when you do this, these will be your ingredients. It's going to be water. This is olive oil right here. I do my oil first. I'm going to use local, raw, fresh, unprocessed honey. Okay, I'm pouring that in there. And again, it's like 2/3 cup. You can use less. This is about what I like. If you want to save some money on a sweetener, you can find a less expensive sweetener to put into your bread. If you put your olive oil in first, it's going to help that honey just to come out of the measuring cup really well, and you're going to get almost every drop of it in your bread. But you can use other types of sweeteners. There's a variety of ways to do this. Then I'm going to put my yeast in. This is 3 tablespoons of yeast. Keep in mind I'm making 6 loaves of bread, or what I like to say 6 somethings. Maybe 6 batches of cinnamon rolls, maybe 6 things of pizza dough, or maybe Italian flatbread or monkey bread, different things that you can do with this. So the yeast is in there. I'm going to turn the machine on and I'm going to begin adding flour. I'm going to add 10 cups of flour and let the machine run so you'll get to hear how that works. But just keep in mind, this was SAF Professional Baker's Yeast. It comes in a 1-pound vacuum sealed pack, and I like to put mine in a wide mouth mason jar and keep it in my freezer, and that can extend the life of it. So it lasts and lasts. I've never had it go bad. It's been very, very phenomenal yeast, and it's so good that you only have to let your bread rise one time. When I was growing up and making bread, I had to punch it down and let it rise and punch it down, and so then 2 rises, which takes more time. So this way, this yeast just works its way through the bread, and it always gives a great, fluffy, soft bread. So I'm going to turn my machine on. When I'm finished adding the flour, I'm going to go ahead and put this sea salt in. So what you have is honey, sea salt, yeast, flour, fresh flour, and hot water. Okay? Nothing you can't pronounce, no preservatives, and nothing taken out of the grain. So here we go. You want to be sure the splash guard is on so nothing flies around. Okay, once that's mixed in, I'm going to put my lid on and I'm going to set a timer for 10 minutes. In the winter, I could go as long as 15 minutes letting my dough just sit in there. But in the summer, 10 minutes is the max. If I don't, it's going to grow. If I don't set the timer and stop and come see what's happening, the dough will just rise and rise out. All this will start lifting up. So what I'm doing is I'm letting the dough sponge, I'm letting the yeast work its way through. And the beauty of this is, if you really want to, you can skip the sponging process. I'm just going to show you what that's like because it is something I like to do. And usually when I'm teaching people how to make bread, this is where I set the timer and I take that 10 minutes to explain why. I show them the grain vials and explain what we're doing. So we're going to let this sit just a minute and I'll show you what it looks like. Here's what it looks like now. And then we'll see in 10 minutes what it looks like. Okay, if you'll notice, the dough has risen in the bowl, and now all I'm going to do is turn my machine on and add flour until the dough pulls away from the side. So you're going to want to get a view of that. When the dough has pulled away from the sides of the bowl, then I know I put in enough flour. That's how this machine works.